Um, and that's like a notorious story. I think Gallows tells it because Dr. Death would come down and be a coach for a day, one day a week or a couple days a week. And it's this great story on the internet from a high spots shoot where where Ray Gordy, they wanted us to read Dr. Death's book. They gave us a test on it. And Ray Gordy was like, I ain't reading this book. And Johnny Ace is like, how dare you disrespect this man, blah, blah, blah. And he's just like, he fucked over my whole family. And, there was Gordy and Dr. Death heat there. And
Oh,
Johnny
wow.
Ace didn't recognize it or realize it. And he's just like, you can't make me read this guy's book who allegedly, like stole money from my family and fucked my family over and all of this
Never
stuff.
heard that. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. It's worth looking up it's
Wow.
on YouTube
I'll
somewhere.
check it out.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so Dr. Death hated everybody there except Jack Swagger, Jake Hager, because he was an Oklahoma wrestler.
Mm,
But he was not nice. He was not a nice person. And looking back on it, I would say from my perspective, he was very bitter. He had gone back to Japan and then kind of it did, he was getting older. I think he was
right.
working at Southwest Airlines as a flight attendant. And he just thought I think he thought he should have been, I think he thought he should have been the main coach or even an agent. But I think Johnny Ace was just kind of giving him a favor and threw him a
Right.
bone. And he was very negative, and he was just like, "Y'all don't deserve this. You didn't work the way I worked." But and I wanted to be like, dude, when just a year ago, I was in Puerto Rico, Japan, and Europe all within 1 month. Like, I mean, I know it's not the exact same, but I was doing the thing. I was doing the way that we did it. Y'all did it to the best of my abilities,
Right.
and he hated me especially because I didn't look like some of like I mean, I was in shape, but they wanted these wrestlers to look a certain way, and I didn't look that way. But one time we were watching tape, and I threw Sean Spears, who was also in class. Oh, Cody was there too. Cody was in there. I threw Sean Spears with one hand around the wrist and then two hands around the wrist, and I threw him to the corner. And he's like, why do you think you could do that? Like, what kind of bullshit is that? And he was really getting mad at me that I Irish whipped him corner to corner by the wrist. And I said, I'm just a big fan of Don Morocco. I've always liked Don Morocco. And then like I saw in his eyes going like, oh my God, I didn't think anyone knew who Don Morocco here was. And so he was a little nicer to me after that. And he's like, okay, all right.
Huh.
Yeah.
Was Jim Cornette there?
Jim Cornette was not there. Al Snow was the coach. Danny Davis was the owner. Robert Gibson was a coach. And that was kind of it. And then Dr. Death would come in every now and then. So it was a small crew. And then, I was there a year. And then you could tell the last 2 or 3 months they weren't sending anybody to OVW. They weren't giving us a lot of resources. We used to have 40 wrestlers. Now we had 16 signed wrestlers. And what happened was they ended up closing down OVW and firing some and shipping some of us to FCW. And so we went to FCW. Yeah, I, I think OVW thought we could run this the way we want to. They're lucky to have us. Just send that money and leave us alone. And I don't know
Well,
why they thought that,
yeah.
but and eventually it was just like, well, then you could do it yourself. And they have been ever since. I don't think at the level or the money opportunities that they were getting.
Right.
But then Steve Kern opened up FCW and he was literally building it as we were getting there. And Steve Kern was like, you send me this money, I will run this exactly how you want to, whatever you want. Yes, sir. No, sir. He was definitely, his attitude was definitely a different one than the guys at OVW. And I guess I could respect OVW a little bit for it, but you know, you're not, you can see what happened. And then Steve Kern ran that thing and was able to retire. And now he hunts gators in Florida and, hangs out with the grandchildren. So
So I broke in February 92. July 92, I'm doing my first TV in
that's
in Port
crazy.
in Portland. I'll tell you even funnier story than that. In Portland, Maine, against Skinner, Steve Curran, my
There
first
you
real
go.
match. What a pro! So I joined up to wrestling school on a Monday. We trained Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Okay. So the next week I trained. No, I'm sorry. I joined on a Friday. I joined a wrestling school. So I trained Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I was in the ring 4 times. That Saturday there was a school show and they were short a guy and they threw me in a real match. A
And
match. You know how dangerous that is for me and my opponent when you look back?
how many matches had your opponent had?
Oh gosh, 4. You know, it was just another wrestling student guy, but yeah,
Yeah,
crazy. But Steve
that's
Curran,
wild.
nothing but respect for Steve Curran.
He was a hard ass, but I liked him a lot. He was cool. I thought he was cool.
What's an average week in developmental like?
It's so wild because I had wrestling 8 years as an independent wrestler, and I was doing my own schedule, and I woke up when I wanted to, and you drive to the shows, and it kind of became like an office job almost. Monday through Friday, you got up and you went to the school at 10, and you finished at 2 or 3, and then you had to go to the gym right afterwards, and so you're done by 6 or 7, and then you have a couple hours and you got to get up the next morning. So that's kind of how that became an FCW. OVW was a little different because we taped TV on like a Tuesday maybe or a Wednesday, and so we would have Thursday, or maybe we'd have Wednesday off. Maybe we would watch it Thursday and then do shows Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then have Monday off, and then so like at first it was a lot of practicing, but then we had so many shows at OVW that it became a little easier because all I wanted to do was wrestle. I didn't want to do practice. I didn't want to bump. A lot of people needed the practice, but of course, wrestling the shows is the best way to become the best wrestler.
Of course.
Uh, um, I think that's a little lost now. Maybe, but it is getting those reps in front of a live crowd is just everything. And so that was kind of an OVW, but FCW, we hadn't started running the live shows. They just started. So we were doing a lot of practicing. And I remember at one point, like my body just hurt so much. And we would start the day with like 3 flip bumps, 3 back bumps. And at one point I just said, no. And I just started doing forward rolls. And I was like, instead of the bumps, I would do rolls. And I was like, if you want to get me in trouble, get me in trouble. But this point, I'm 10 years in. I've worked, I worked 200 days a year for, 8 of those years or whatever. And my body hurts. And I remember they didn't really have like the program they had. They didn't have the trainers. They didn't have any of it. And
Right.
then, what was his name? Not the Renegade, but Joe Gomez
I
was
love
just,
Joe Gomez.
yeah, I was just like, I need a chiropractor so bad, but I can't afford it because of the payment we're getting, and he got us a guy who worked down there who would do the wrestlers, and just the adjustment itself was like a lifesaver for my body to feel a little better to be able to get back in there and bump around.
Myself and Crowbar wrestled Joe Gomez and the Renegade.
Is that right?
And myself and Crowbar wrestled Joe Gomez and Ice Train.
Wow.
Joe Gomez, the nicest man in the world. Ice Train, the worst professional wrestler I've ever been in the ring with, without question.
You know what?
There's
And as a fan, I was just like, Ice Train is cool. Like I definitely, and no pun intended. Well, maybe a little pun intended, but I thought he was like a bad, and I was always curious why he didn't get a bigger push. And that's probably
He
your answer why.
killed you. I swear I'll sell for you. I swear I will. He
Right.
killed me. Killed me with everything. With everything.
Amazing.
Everything.
But I mean, I'm kind of on Instagram. Everything is at Colt Cabana. I'm on Twitch. I like to play video games on Twitch. I like to play Fortnite. So my Twitch is at Colt Cabana. Everything's at Colt Cabana. And my merchandise site is still up, coltmerch.com, if you ever want something from there. But Pro Wrestling Tees is still alive. ShopAEW.com is still alive. Oh, I host a live auction site, a live wrestling auction every single Tuesday night at 5:30 p.m. Central, pwtlive.com on Whatnot. And if you're into memorabilia, signed exclusives, that kind of stuff, there are so many hidden gems that go for so cheap there because not a lot of people know about it. So we're trying to get big. But you can go and get some crazy deals from the wrestlers, and it's a great way that AEW can kind of sell some one-off stuff, and then also Pro Wrestling Tees and the warehouse can kind of get rid of some of the stuff that we have in there that we wouldn't know how to sell. So it's a great platform, the live shopping experience, the live auction, pwtlive.com, every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Central. And that's it. Watch AEW Dynamite. Watch AEW Collision. Watch Juggalo Championship Wrestling on YouTube. I'm a JCW wrestling superstar. They have a very fun YouTube show, and just support wrestling.